Welcome to Femme Furious, a podcast pop culture meets a feminine framing. I am your host, Julia Rose Portela, and today we are doing our first ever You've Got Mailbag. Now, the You've Got Mailbag will always come after a series to which we've just done 5 episodes of Emily Henry's books. This will also include a book that I covered a little bit earlier on in the year, which is her 6th book, technically, in this Emily Henry universe that we have going on. But a You Got Mailbag will always come after each series so that we have some time to digest and, wrap up any questions, theories, etc. that we may have over the course of that group. But before we dive into today's episode, the meat of it, all of the questions, let me tell you how you can follow the pod. You can subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch full video breakdowns on YouTube or on Spotify. You can also follow us on Instagram. We are at Femme Furious Pod. And if you have any thoughts, feelings, opinions, dreams that you would like analyzed, send those over to femmeandfuriouspod@gmail.com. Before we dive into all of the questions from the You've Got Mailbag, I thought it would be fun if we did a little segment that I am going to call Lip Gloss and Lore. This is essentially going to be a news segment letting you know some updates that are happening in the pop culture world. And there's quite a few, and that's why this came to my mind right now. So we're going to run through all of this, and I'm sorry because a lot of it happens to be bookish. And the first is that Jac Schaeffer is officially the showrunner and will be one of the writers and an executive producer on the Fourth Wing series that is coming to Amazon Prime. And this is really exciting, especially if you know Jac Schaeffer's work. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Jac Schaeffer is the creator of WandaVision and Agatha All Along. So pretty solid background of creation. 2 of my favorite properties in Marvel, especially WandaVision, and literally has written a line that is the best line. I quote it all the time. You've probably heard me say it on the podcast before, and you'll hear me say it again. That line that comes from WandaVision is, "What is grief if not love persevering?" And that quote was written by Jac Schaeffer. Incredible writer, incredible showrunner, really incredible vision, very quirky, really good at motifs. And so she will be the showrunner for the upcoming adaptation of Fourth Wing, and I think that's really great. I wanted somebody who was going to care for the property as a whole, and somebody who's going to really allow a lot of the strong beats that are in Fourth Wing to shine through. This is really going to be a nice win-win for both of these people and a nice expansion for Jac Schaeffer and her resume. I also want to say Neil Druckmann has put out a whole statement that he will no longer be on The Last of Us. Well, I'm sorry. Neil Druckmann has put out a statement that he will no longer be working on the adaptation of The Last of Us for season 3. I think this is really interesting, and I think a lot of critics and people who comment on pop culture, I think a lot of us have our thumb on the pulse of this because something feels amiss to me here. Something feels off to me. That's just my gut reaction. He has been so interconnected into the series, and it's not just him, it's Haley Gross, who is also stepping away from the project, and I think it's in fine care with Craig Mazin, but Neil has really been so intimately connected to the series, not in only in its foundation at Naughty Dog, but in the way that it's been adapted. And I find it interesting that he would be stepping away from it at season 3. And I'm wondering if it's because of fan pushback, because there has been a lot of fan pushback, both with the game when it came out and then again with the show when it came out. I think a lot of people were hoping that they would make different choices, and instead they stayed really quite true to the source material. I also thought that they would maybe make some different choices, and yet they didn't, and that's okay too. I think it's interesting that Neil is stepping away, and I'll keep you posted as this unfolds, because to me it seems like maybe there's a little bit more to the story here and what that will mean. We also got a semi-trailer for The People We Meet on Vacation, which is getting adapted. It's Emily Henry's book. If you scroll back in the feed on this podcast, you will find an episode on this very book. I was under the impression that this movie was coming out over the summer, and there is something about The People We Meet on Vacation that feels like a summer book to me. Like more like a beach read than beach read. But when they released the trailer, they released that the movie will be coming out in January 2026. So you can expect that Femme Furious pod will be covering that in the new year. The specific release date is exactly January 9th. So it will be literally really early. We will be ending with Stranger Things in 2025, early into 2026, and then we'll be diving right into rom-com. So we will go from sci-fi to rom-com, and that's just going to be our vibe for the year. We're gonna put a ring on that, whatever that vibe is. Also, as a little sidebar, at the time of this recording, Jurassic World Rebirth has already come out, and they've just released a statement that Scarlett Johansson, because of this movie, is now the highest grossing actor ever. So we love a feminist moment on this podcast. Shout out to ScarJo, who is rockin' shit, clearly. It says that her films have made nearly $15 billion at the box office. So that's wild. We love that. We love that for her. Okay, we also got a trailer for one of my favorite books, easily that I've read this year, Project Hail Mary. It will be starring Ryan Gosling, and it is by the author. It's a book, but it's being adapted into a movie. It's by the author who wrote The Martian, which if you've seen that movie, it has Matt Damon in it. Gave me complete anxiety, but that's a story for another day. That'll be a story for another podcast or another You've Got Mailbag. The movie Project Hail Mary is one of the best audiobooks that I've ever listened to. I cannot recommend it enough. It will certainly be something that I continue to talk about as we go through the course of this year because it's that good. It's that stellar. Like, I don't know, I have not eyeball read it, but the audiobook, for reasons that I cannot explain, but you will just have to trust me, is one of the best audiobooks that you could ever read, listen to. With that being said, the movie comes out on March 2026. Penn Badgley is also coming out with a movie. He will be starring in the movie with Megan Fahey, which if you've never seen her in the bold type, she is phenomenal. She's also in Sirens on Netflix. She was in an Ellen Hildenbrand adaptation, The Perfect Couple. I was like, I can't remember it, but I know I read it and I did it for my book club. She was in The Perfect Couple. She was in that adaptation, but her and Penn Badgley will be in an adaptation called You Deserve Each Other, which is a book by the same name by Sarah Hoggle. So if that's something that's of interest to you, there are just a ton of adaptations I feel that are out there in the world right now. Okay, another thing is The Summer I Turned Pretty is also releasing in a week or so. I think it releases exactly on the 18th, or maybe it's on the 12th. I can't remember exactly the date, but it's releasing sometime next week. That will be the Femme Furious Fully Loaded bonus pod. This month will be a quickie season breakdown of The Summer I Turned Pretty this season. So if you are up to date on teen drama or you're not and you want something that's super bingeable and fun and a little bit cringy, but you're going to love your way through it, that is the series for you. I love a teen drama. I love a teen romance. I love something that's YA. And I don't know, I have sisters, and to me, stories that we are connected to, like, we can't just always want genre stories that are impactful for us. So there's something nostalgic about it for me because I like to look back and be like, oh, when I was that age, how did I feel? But also I have teenage sisters who they're interested in this. And so, you know, I want to be on the pulse of the cultural zeitgeist that they have as well, so that we're not so far apart in our pop culture experiences that we can't find a bridge to each other through stories, because I feel like that's what pop culture and stories are supposed to do. So I will be watching The Summer I Turned Pretty. I will be covering it on the Femme Furious Patreon as a fully loaded bonus episode, and I'm very excited for you guys to see it. All right. We will always have a lipstick and lore during a You've Got Mailbag. So 5 or 6 weeks from now, when we do another one of these, we'll get caught up with everything that sort of happened in between. And if you have anything that you're like, we absolutely need to talk about this, then you just let me know. You send me an email, femmandfuriouspod@gmail.com, and we will cover it. Okay. This is a conglomerate of messages that I have gotten on Instagram or through my email. So I had someone DM me on Instagram and say, okay, but be honest, who's your favorite Emily Henry love interest? And why is it always the one with emotional repression and secret hobbies? And to that I will say, my favorite male character in all of the Emily Henry series is actually Alex Nilsson. Alex is my top tier Emily Henry book boyfriend. Gus is slightly right there with him. Like, I really, really love Gus. But when I'm being realistic, Gus is not a name that I would ever want to say in bed, just being honest. Like, Everett is much better for me. And I think about these things, like, Alex sounds much better rolling off your tongue when you're sleeping with somebody. Sorry, I know that these are maybe not things that other people are thinking about when they are thinking about the loves of their life and their book boyfriends. But I'm thinking about these things because I'm thinking about how I would realistically handle these types of relationships. I love Alex Nilsson, and here's why. I love a man who's fully devoted, and Alex remains committed to 50%, less than that, like 30% to Sarah, who is his long-term on-again, off-again girlfriend, and then the rest of his energy plus some goes to Poppy. He is a devoted person. He's committed to his family, but this idea of like devotion in terms of a relationship, that is the person he worships. He fucking loves Poppy. Like, he really fucking loves her. And I love that. So I'm not saying he's not emotionally repressed, because there is a little bit of that. By the time we get to the end of the book, he's like, oh my God, I'm afraid to be happy, right? And, you know, talking about his therapist and stuff like that. But does he have secret hobbies? No. And is he the most emotionally repressed of all of them? I will also say no. I think he is one of the most emotionally open out of all of the Emily Henry male characters. Okay, I got an email from a listener. Thank you for sending this in, Jess, who said, would you rather live in the town from Book Lovers, which is Sunshine Falls, Funny Story, which is Cherry Hill, or Beach Read? And I'm going to say, if I'm being realistic, first of all, it's not Book Lovers. I hate a small town romance. I'm never moving to Sunshine Falls. If I have to go to North Carolina, Sunshine Falls is not where I'm going. I'm going to Asheville. Funny Story has a perfectly fine setting. It's obviously got a library. I think I would go with Beach Read because I think that's got more options and less small town vibe. But if I'm being really honest, I would probably go to the Cottage in Happy Place because there's a movie theater, there's good coffee, there's good restaurants, so there's fairs and like things to do. There's like a lobster festival. I mean, I don't eat fish, so I would not be partaking in any of the lobster part of lobster festival unless it was like lobster candies or things like that. But I like the idea of everything that's happening sort of in Happy Place because I feel like there's more ambiance than some of the other books. But if I had to pick between Book Lovers, Funny Story, and Beach Read, I would pick Beach Read. That is where I would go and live. I also got another email from a listener who said, how many traumatic family through lines have you noticed throughout the entirety of this series? And I will say there is number one, hashtag daddy issue. And number two, there is a death of a parent. No one does a death of a parent like Disney and Emily Henry. They are both killing parents off left and right. All right. My next one was a DM that was, what's your Roman Empire Emily Henry moment? Like a scene that literally lives in your brain rent-free. What is it for me? I have to think about this. If I'm being honest, I think for me, it is when January and Gus go to the cult site that was burnt down, that had survived the fire. I don't know why that's what stood out in my head from a read or a reread perspective, because there are certain things that like stand out about each and every book. But when I think about something that I really felt moved by and recalled, I would say that. That is something that feels significant. This scene where they hike through the woods and they go to the site and they look at all of the trailers and all of the houses that were burned down. That I think is something that stands out to me. I know it's not a romantic moment, and I know it's maybe not like the most coming of age moment, but that is what actually lives in my brain rent-free. That is something that I think just exists in there. I don't know if I would say it's my Roman Empire moment, but I do think that is sort of stuck in there, like has stuck to my ribs in some capacity. Okay, I got a question that said, do I think that Emily Henry writes women who are real? And the answer is yes. I think Emily Henry does a really good job of writing nuance and diversity for her female characters. I think she writes them from a lens of feminism. I think she takes all types of women and puts them into consideration. And I love that about her. Like, when I think about who I would actually be friends with in real life, all of them hold a little bit of resonance of something I see in myself and somebody that I would really want to spend time with. I love that they're not just clean-cut characters. I love that there's nuance to who they are and how they move through this world. Okay, I got a really interesting question that came from a listener that I don't know, so thank you for sending this in. And it said, what would you include in a dream self starter pack for each of Emily Henry's main girls? Now, this is somebody who wrote me an email and said that they listen to my podcast, but they listen to my podcast because they follow my metaphysical work. And I really liked this question. What would you include in a dream self starter pack for Emily Henry's main girls? So taking all of the main characters and then applying them to myself. So let's start with January. I'm going to say January's ability to romanticize things is what I'm taking from January. Okay, I'm going to take Nora's heels. I'm going to take Poppy's funky wardrobe, like her 70s style wardrobe. I'm going to pair it with Nora's heels. I'm going to take Alice's job from Great Big Beautiful Life. I want to, in this dream self, be a writer or somebody who's working on my own. Like, she's got a really cool job. I don't know, I love it. And then I guess from Funny Story with Daphne, I would take her chai lattes and her boyfriend. So let's see. I think I had a few more. If you had to get brunch with two Henry characters and avoid one completely, who are you picking? Okay, if I have to get lunch with two people, first and foremost, I'm having lunch with Poppy. Me and Poppy would be best friends. I am Poppy, she is me. I am also going to have lunch with Alice from Great Big Beautiful Life. I am Alice, she is me. In different ways, okay? See the vision, understand the vision. So me, Poppy, and Alice are going to have lunch together. I think if I have to pick a character, this is a side character, I am avoiding Sabrina from Happy Place at all fucking costs. I don't want to hang out with her. Sorry, she would not be my friend. Okay, last question. Do you think Emily Henry will ever write a book where the love interest is actually a coworker instead of these weird workplace romances that she writes? Now, to this, they are referring to Great Big Beautiful Life, where Alice and Hayden are in competition with each other. They are talking about Beach Read, where there's sort of like college nemesis slash maybe like workplace romance. And Book Lovers, which is also has a theme of sort of like a workplace enemies to lovers. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not in the business of making predictions with what Emily Henry will do. But here's what I'll say is it seems to me like Great Big Beautiful Life is a bridge between these like rom-coms to books that are maybe a little bit more literary heavy. Because when I look at Great Big Beautiful Life, there is a really beautiful story in there that has nothing to do with Alice and Hayden. And I think maybe she's interested as a writer to challenge herself in new capacities by writing a book like this and maybe striking out in different directions and not just being known as this rom-com writer, even though I don't think she is like offended or hurt that she's known as a rom-com writer. She writes about this consistently in her books, that writing romance is something that should be loved and adored, and she loves the genre. So I'm not really sure, but I understand because there's not really an actual workplace romance, and I don't know. I don't know if she'll actually do it, but I think if she does, she would do it really, really well. And I think it would maybe be something that is fun to dive into. But I think what Emily Henry is more interested in is in nuance in the life story and what is happening more comprehensively than just the tropes. In fact, she likes to flip tropes a lot or spin tropes on their heads or look at them very differently. So I would not be surprised if she doesn't ever just settle into a singular trope like that in a way that feels conventional, maybe in places that we've seen it before. All right. That is our You've Got Mailbag. Thank you so much for being a part of this week's episode of Femme and Furious Pod. I will be back on Friday with a quickie season breakdown of Too Much by Lena Dunham. I will see you then.